I came back the next day, I got fully engaged, and I got serious and realized, listen, you have a problem letting other people help you. It's about time you can. That's a lesson, by the way, that took a very, very long time for me to learn.
Well, hello and welcome to another amazing guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and I'm super stoked for the conversation we're going to have today. I'll tell you a story. So, 2019 is when I first started working with a law firm and decided that I'm going to go all in. Actually, I started working with them in 2018. 2019 decided I'm going all in on legal and started to entrench myself in the legal community. Joined a bunch of Facebook groups, went to a couple of events, and there was a name that kept coming up. It was almost like this is like the rock star of law firm owners, and people called him the lawman. His name is Bill Umansky, and I didn't know who he was or what he was about, but I just kept seeing him everywhere. And he would show up in posts and on social, and his videos would show up and all this stuff. And just on the periphery, I had this constant exposure to this guy, the lawman. And it wasn't until end of 2023 that we really got to know each other. And over the last couple of years, I have gotten really close with Bill, and he's just an amazing individual, charitable, involved in his community, involved in the legal community, does helps other attorneys forge their path, and he doesn't ask anything for it, right? Like, he's just such a giving person, and he's built an amazing firm, multiple attorneys on his firm, a great staff, and doing criminal defense and PI in the beautiful land of Orlando, Florida, and its surrounding counties, and just really amazing stuff that Bill has built. And I said, we really got to get Bill on the show, or Bill told me we really got to get Bill on the show, so that we can explore his journey and really learn from that experience. So, Bill, welcome to the Profit with Law podcast. Really excited to have you here today.
I'm glad to be on. Finally, it's good. I'm happy that we're going to do this thing together.
All right, awesome. So, let's go back to the beginning. I mean, why in the world did you become an attorney, a criminal defense attorney? What made you decide to do that before we even talk about your law firm?
This, in my mind, I think as you get older, the stories seem to change. But the one thing that never changed is my desire to be a lawyer in general versus being a criminal defense lawyer. So I don't think it's that I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer so much as I just wanted to help people, because when I was younger, I felt powerless, and a lot of that was self-imposed. Actually, as I look back, instead of blaming my parents or it really had nothing to do with them, it just was myself. I felt powerless. I was having problems at school, getting in trouble a lot. Would forge friendships, and then just get tossed from schools. And I just noticed that people in my situation, you either take two routes. You advocate and become a victim, and then you just have a pity party for yourself, and you whine and you complain, or you begin to advocate for yourself. And so the reality is, I wanted to become a lawyer because I felt that was the perfect median to advocate for myself and then advocate for others. So that's really why I became a lawyer, was from feeling a lack of power.
I love the story, and I love the parallel. I actually didn't know that we were both thrown out of schools when we were growing up, so that's kind of cool to just know that maybe that's part of the attraction here. But let's talk about the starting of your firm. What made you decide to hang up your own shingle to start your own firm? And then I want to explore the process of what that growth looked like over time. But first, I'm just curious about what was the impetus or the reason for getting that started.
Yeah, I think I had a problem with authority, honestly. So I was a prosecutor for about 2.5 years, and I had tried many, many, many cases. I was never afraid of trial. I was afraid of losing, but not afraid of trial. That was the most enjoyable thing for me. And I would jump in on other cases. I became a division chief for domestic violence. Had some great mentors there, Michelle Jackson, but I was a jerk to many people, and I won't go into the story, but essentially, when I met my later on to be my wife, she was a public defender named Zara Umansky now, but it was back then Zara Irvani. She moved to Orlando, so I came to Orlando, worked in the city prosecutor's office, and at that point, I still didn't really want to be a defense attorney. In fact, I was hard right on how I looked at crime and punishment, so I really didn't think about doing that. But I thought about, well, what's in alignment with pursuing justice? And personal injury kind of made me feel like it was what I wanted. So I left the city, worked for a couple different personal injury outfits, but quite frankly, I had a big ego, and it was hard for me to really fit in because I had problems with authority. So I after I left one firm, and I had a good relationship there. I'm still friends, actually, maybe now 25 years later, with the guy that ran that firm. His name's Dutch Anderson. I left to go work with a double board certified, probably first female double board certified trial lawyer, an amazing lawyer. Um, but we were a little bit like oil and water, and I won't go into the specifics, but at some point she had enough of me, and so she's like, "You're out." So, and I can go into the whole story, but I don't want to throw her under the bus because but I can tell you part of it did have something to do with I watched how she handled the exiting of other people in her firm at the same time she exited me, because really there was a lot of cases on appeal. There was a financial decision to make, and I watched how she handled it. She was trying to help me get another job with another firm. This is why it's relevant. So I'm not going to throw her under the bus to tell you everything, but basically I ruined that because I didn't like how she handled some of these people that had worked with her for many, many years. I opened my mouth to her, and that basically she stopped picking up the phone to call other managing partners to help me out. So I remember getting an offer from they're still around now. In fact, they've grown quite a bit. PI firm here in town, where this is about 25 years ago. They offered me 70 grand as a base, and they were kind of alluding that I'd probably make a couple hundred grand, and I get to try cases and everything. And I just sat and thought, like, let's see, I worked for the state attorneys, I worked for a prosecutor. There was one other guy I worked for that I had almost a fist fight with that didn't work out. I left this firm that I did like to work for this double board certified lawyer who I ended up not really liking, although respecting tremendously as a trial lawyer. And I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I have a problem with authority. I've always known it. I just need to do my own thing. So I opened my own firm, but I was scared at the time, so I picked my old trial partner from the state attorney's office, who's exact opposite. He kind of looks like you, wears glasses. He's very methodical, good trial lawyer, but definitely not a charismatic guy. Couldn't really bring in business, but great guy. And I should have not done that with him either, but I was afraid, so I went with him, and we opened our firm for about, I think, 3 or 4 years together. And then basically realized I was bringing in all the work. This is something that typically happens when you do a 50-50. We had a very amicable split. I gave him a case that he brought in that I could have kept 50-50, and he ended up making a tremendous amount of money on it. He let me keep a case that I didn't do so well on, but we still remained friends. But essentially, he knew I was working 70, 80 hours a week. And that for me, I hate to say this, but at the time, business first over everything else. So, he didn't want to live that lifestyle. He moved around to different firms after and contracted out. And I created Umansky Law and never looked back.
What an incredible journey. When you started your firm, did you start it just you? Like, were you the attorney, the marketer, the salesperson, or did you start with a team? What did that look like when you first decided to start your own firm?
Yeah, so I got to give honor to Greg because that's really where we started our first firm. It was Umansky and Fensick, or basically we had business cards that said "FU." So, but we used to hand them out that said but it was funny. Although I'm not sure he liked that, but I had some secret cards made. But we started out together with a credit card. I know I had like a couple $1,000s on a credit card. We started in a place called Maitland, which is a very upscale neighborhood, but in a bank which had green carpet. I mean, it wasn't the bank. We had side offices that had green carpet and green plastic chairs in the conference room. And I knew this is how I learned that I was definitely needed. I had years of therapy, but I realized like I was very insecure man at the time because Greg would see these criminal clients in the conference room and I could barely like see them in there. Like I wore nice suits, and I realized, remembering at the time, like I would close these people and feel cheap and dirty, and I hated myself. Which really, Greg being the one that wasn't charismatic, the one that was much more stable person about himself, because he'd just meet with the clients. So, but that's where we first ended up with cracked plastic chairs, an old brown conference room on crappy green carpet that was shaggy. And remember having my first free intern, Tony Sos, who's now a major medical malpractice lawyer in town, makes tremendous amount of money. Was my first intern. So I had $1,000 on a credit card, maybe 2,000. Our rent was maybe $300-400. We did our own direct mail where we filled out our own postage, our own mail outs. We got a case platform called Time Matters that we figured out ourselves. Actually, he did. We just started doing everything on our own. So that was our firm. And then when he left, that was just me doing the letters, me trying to figure out the software, me trying to figure out the trust account, me doing my own secretarial work, just doing it on my own until I could find a little bit of a nicer place to work out of. And realizing, by the way, that was I think, one of the many small steps of realizing that I had an ego problem, I had a self-esteem problem, and I needed to start working on that. So I started reading, going to coaching programs, and exploring therapy again.
Humble beginnings is something that a lot of people listening to this podcast can relate to. Most people start their firms themselves. They start their firms with, no real savings or big capital to invest, not really knowing how they're going to explore this, just thinking that it can't be that hard to replace my income that I was making somewhere else by just bringing in some cases and getting that revenue in the door. When you look at your journey, I know that the pivotal moment for law firm owners is when they figure out that they need to hire another attorney onto their staff, or they need to hire staff in general. I work with a lot of solos and help them grow, but I'm curious about your experience. What do you feel is the first pivotal moment of growth in your business? Like when do you think the first time that you leveled up was in your journey?
Um, So I read this book, The E Myth. I don't really know what the first pivotal moment is. That's a great question, but I'm very bad at like trying to remember first, seconds, thirds, fourths, and even though I'm 59, my memory's starting to go a little bit. I also think I never really could understand that. I can tell you what felt like a defining moment for me, but I have many of them. I went and read this book called E Myth, and it really spoke to me because this story was about the baker who's a great baker. I don't know if other guests have talked to you about this on your podcast. I'll make it quick, but
Yep.
best baker opens a bakery and starts failing, right? Just the cakes don't get delivered. They didn't have systems in place. So I went to an EOS conference out in California, and unlike everybody else, because I have a problem with authority, I refused to do my homework. So the guy did the right thing and said, "You're not, even though you paid for this, I don't want you sitting here because you didn't do what you were supposed to do." So I was like, "That's fucked up. I just gave this guy a lot of money and I can still handle that. I don't need to explain everything." So he's like, "Come back tomorrow when you actually have done something." So I had a credit card. I rented a limousine that night in San Francisco. I think it was in San Fran. The seminar was in Santa Rosa or something, but I rented out a limo and I went to a steak dinner and I wrote my vision for my law firm. I actually started really thinking about it. And great as I went to a club after, and even after that, I remember just I was in Sausalito, and I was able to like really just in the limo, and I really just was able to picture like what that would look like, what my firm would look like. I did the homework. I came back the next day. I got fully engaged, and I got serious, and realized, listen, you have a problem letting other people help you. It's about time you can. That's a lesson, by the way, that took a very, very long time for me to learn, but it was the start of what I think was a pivotal moment for my practice. Because when I got back, I had a vision and I started executing on that vision.
That's incredible. You know, defining a vision of what you want, and it's something that to your point, right? Like no, most people don't think about that when they start the firm, right? Like you're starting it because you have a reason to start, or you're starting it because you think how hard could it be, right? And then you lose sight of it, right? And just get busy with doing the work.
Yeah. And
And
it was a specific vision, like who I wanted to work with. The type of attorneys I wanted to work with were either going to be ex-athletes or leaders, or both, or people that focused on fitness, health. Also, were very, very focused on not being afraid of going to trial. I had an idea of who I wanted to work with, how much money I thought I wanted to make, that kind of thing. And that was a good start, but there was plenty of as with everything else, I didn't really always build on it after, like, but I can tell you that that vision, eerily enough, I looked at it a year or two ago and it's pretty close to fruition. And I realized, well, I got to update that vision now. It's been 25 years, but I was forward thinking out 20 years on that vision. The mistake I made, obviously, was I should have revisited every 5 years and made some contingencies, or made it different. I didn't do that because I was too stubborn.
yeah, I don't know how you and I ended up working together. I'm not an ex-athlete, and not focused on health and fitness and
Yeah,
that
I
stuff,
think
but
that's a smart question. That was another pivotal moment after 30 years of practice where, as you know, I don't really like to talk about money. Lawyer today told me they resolved the case for, I don't know if there's a confidentiality clause, but I'm not mentioning who it is, but it's a seven-figure settlement, and was trying to talk to me about the fee. And after he sent that to me, I didn't think about my fee or his fee. I just went and took a shower and then started eating breakfast. And then he had to call me back because I asked him to call me, and then we talked about it. So that other pivotal moment really came. I have many pivotal moments, but you were a pivotal moment only because I don't like money, don't want to talk about money, and it was only until I started after. For you guys out there that are, I should probably be a triple eight-figure law firm, but didn't because I just hated money so much that I made a really good living, but wasted a lot of money, didn't think about money, and was giving out bonuses not based on any KPIs or systems, based on emotion. And so that was another pivotal moment a couple of years ago when we met, to start getting serious about building a firm, not just building a lifestyle. I think I built a lifestyle over a firm, which is good. I mean, I somehow was able to do it. Maybe that's why you heard a lot about me. I was able to travel 100 days a year, do whatever the fuck I want, still work, do what I like doing, treat people well. But, there was a lot of people that left because we didn't have systems. There was no consistency, no structure. A lot of that changed before you, through EOS. And then regarding the finances, that changed after we met you.
yeah, and folks, we'll link it up in the show notes. But Bill had me on his podcast, and we talked about the relationship that I have with him, where we operate as fractional CFOs in his business, and we dive into that. But when focusing on the money, when you recognize that there is a profit margin that you want to make and you want to hit, it changes how you make decisions. It changes the way that you think about things. It changes how quickly you move, and how long you allow something to sit and fester. And if you're not focusing on those things, there could be a lot of waste and a lot of lost opportunity for your own personal wealth creation that you should be experiencing because of the work that you put in. Bill, you have an incredible team, and people struggle with that, right? They struggle with finding good people. They struggle with finding the right people. They struggle with people that are going to stay, that want to stay. What do you attribute your success in assembling a great team of people, both in finding them and in them being happy and wanting to stay there and retaining them? What's the secret sauce there?
Yeah, it's not just about retaining, it's also about exiting. So uh, because I think that if you go, I think this is the bottom line. It's really funny. We talk to a lot of people. We go to a lot of conferences. I go to a lot of conferences. I was a strategic coach member, EOS member. There's going to be another coaching method I want to explore at some point. And you learn a lot about leadership, and you learn a tremendous of things about leadership, and you see other people who are able to maintain and retain a lot of their people. Some of that's fortuitous and lucky, but it also is a reflection of you as a leader. And so you can go to these conferences, you could talk a good game, you can. It's so similar. It's almost about your personal relationships, right? You know who your real friends are when shit hits the fan. So when shit hits the fan for people in your firm, you need to be there for them. And just to give you an example, I really feel like I don't have an ego about much anymore. And I don't want to say it on your show, but I have this analogy I usually give to men. I will just say, generally speaking, I give a lot of men advice, but men who are in their 20s think differently than men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. I won't go into specifics because I don't want to embarrass you on your show, but we do think things differently at different ages. And I used to have a tremendous ego. I think the only place I'm most proud of now is that I can be relied upon when shit hits the fan. I think when, for example, during COVID, um, we all took pay cuts, the lawyers, so that we could keep our staff on. Many who are still there, some who have left, but always remember what we did. And also among the lawyers themselves, I didn't take a back distribution and was open to showing the books. And not one of them ever asked, by the way, to see the books. So, my wife wasn't happy. We took a $50,000 salary each, so 100 grand during COVID. I think that's what it was. And everyone else reduced their salaries and their commissions all the way down to keep staff on. I think when you have employees that are going through a bad time, if they have issues with separation from their spouse or mental illness. So when things go bad, like your employees are going through a family issue, they're going through some other stuff, you've got to separate out their performance versus what you're going to do to try to take care of them. And so their performance may slip for a certain period of time, and you'll have to deal with that. If they truly want to do their own thing, you have to encourage them to do their own thing, even though it's a loss to yourself. So what I would say is, so many people go to these conferences, they say they're going to be good leaders, they talk about being good leaders, and then ultimately they don't do the hard work, because the hard work is when someone's not performing. Now, we may get rid of people now who are not performing, but if they have some issue going on, we need to give them grace. And if you have to show up for them, and that's the hardest part of leadership. I think most leaders, including law firm owners, are evaluating people, even if they care about the people, in the prism of what they can do for their law firm. And they're not selfish people. They're normal people that give to other people in their life, give to charities, do it for the right reasons, probably even more noble than I am in many ways. But when it comes to their people, they tend to like them a little bit more when they're performing and like them a little bit less when they're not, or when there's crisis. And I think that's the measure of whether someone is a good leader. And that's why we're able to retain people. As far as finding them, I think that's I'm probably not the best at that because I tend to see the best in everyone. But I am good at the lawyers. And I think it's because I've done everything on my own. I understand that I need to find their truth, not the truth they want to tell me, so that I retain them and trying to get them to understand that what we want is for them to be extremely happy in their place of work. That if they're not happy, they'll communicate, and that we want them happy because that's the way they'll bring in business for us and stay with us. As far as managers, I think promoting within, there's always this thing that maybe you outgrow people, and that is true. If you have a $50 million firm, maybe you got to consider hiring someone with an MBA. But I also think that loyalty, grit, people that really get it. So, like, I was the guy that filled out mail outs, and now I'm the guy that runs a 35, 37 person firm. Why not put a leader in place who was your legal assistant a long time ago, or a legal assistant who kind of got every single position, understands, and they're willing to evolve and grow. So I think promoting within is really important. And also, when you talk about finding other people, if I'm going on too long, cut me off. But I do think when you do stuff for your employees, tell them to share that. Yes, exploit them. So, as you know, a request is being made to you to do something for one of our lawyers in the office. And if that happens, I plan, unless this person is embarrassed to do it, because then I don't want to do it, but I plan on letting social know what we're doing for our people. Because what happens is people see that and they're like, I want to work with that firm. They're doing things different for their people, and it's not just monetarily based, it's they care about people. So I think I've probably surmised it. If I had to classify it again, I would say it's being a leader in tough times, promoting within, and then promoting what you're doing for your people so that the world knows, so that people will want to work with you.
Yeah, I love that, and the leadership quality, and you have a huge heart, and you're a big giver, and love to give to your team, and it's clear in a lot of the interactions that I have with you and with your staff. But I love the story back by COVID, and really just this whole idea or concept that, like, when somebody's underperforming, but it's because of personal reasons, that instead of looking at it as a negative, look at it as an opportunity to prop them up and be there to support them. Um, so really good stuff, Bill, and thank you for sharing that. If we look at your journey, right? And I know that you don't want to talk about the sequencing of when things happen, which is fine. We don't have to go deep into the recesses of your memory there. Um, I'm sure that there were some tough decisions that you needed to make at some point. And if you could think about that, can you give us one or two examples of some of the really difficult decisions that you had to make as a business owner? Whether it was a decision on growth or a decision on, stepping back from something. I'm sure that you've had some of those along the
Sure.
way. Um,
Yeah, yeah. There's three that come to mind, but one was my wife. So essentially, that's also part of it. When you own a small business with your spouse, uh, you know, it can get difficult, especially when that spouse has alternative strengths than yours, different strengths than you have, but they may not necessarily fit within the paradigms of your leadership structure. So, when people ask us, "Oh, is your wife your partner?" I mean, I honestly tell them, no, she's not. So one of the things is making a conscious decision to back my teammates over my spouse when it came to certain decisions, and I mean leaders. And second of all, not have her on the leadership team, which is something when she listens to this podcast will then eventually well, she knows this anyway, so I don't care. But the reality is, like, that was a tough decision because I didn't want to lose employees, um, because my spouse is a great lawyer, and used to be a great trial lawyer. Is very, very, has high degrees of integrity, sees the world in black and white, and that's a good thing for certain things. With leadership, it's not always good to be that way. So that was a tough decision, basically telling her, this isn't your business. She was always the boss of the house, and I was the boss at work. But as a strong person that she is, she would try to interject in certain ways, either indirectly or directly. So, really, a tough decision, and one of the most pivotal decisions when it comes to that was saying to her, "Look, I am the boss. I built this firm, not you. And you built the family. That's great. You're a great lawyer. But, if this is something that you need to do, then you might need to do it somewhere else. Because the reality is that I'm the leader, I'm the chief of this place." So for some of your women listeners out there who are lawyers and powerful, trust me, it's not anti-women or anti-marriage. Most of the people on my leadership team are in fact women, and they actually bossed me around. So, but it was more about having an effective leadership. That was probably one of the toughest decisions because, I love my wife. I didn't want to hurt her, but I had to make sure that it was clear and clear to my people that I had their backs. Once in a while, she's right about things, though, and but there's a way to communicate that. And with Grace, she's after many years of not, she has stepped back, which has been pivotal. I think another time was losing one of our top salespeople. I fired him in a rare display of a little bit of public rage. Actually, he texted me the other day, but I didn't. I put up with him for so long because he was a top salesperson and dealt with his stuff, but he didn't fit our values. Good guy, just didn't fit within our structure. And I had to basically, I think I've done this more than once in my career, but it's always hard to get rid of someone that's either a rainmaker or someone that can bring in money, because we definitely hurt after that and money was down after that. And I definitely had thoughts like, why did I do it? But that gave me confidence because when I overcame that doubt, no one else had to come over that doubt. I'm like, it forced me. I think I hired 4 or 5 salespeople and got rid of all of them until I found a good one and moved on from that. So that was the second one. I think the third one, the idea of keeping people on during COVID was, I don't want to get into that again, but that was a big, tough decision. I think the another time was maybe passing ways with a very good friend of mine, my director of marketing. I really love him, and that was a tough decision for many reasons. But I think he's happier where he is, and we're still looking for someone. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that was tough because the relationships. By the way, I have to bring this up. I think, your people. I think there can be a separation, but if the truth is that these people that you work with are about as close as your family. If you look at your family and you put them first, that is an appropriate place to put them, of course. But the people you work with next to your best friends are pretty close second, because they're the people that you want to spend time with. So in order to do that, it's not cliche to say they are your family. They are people you care about them. But that's the thing. You either care about your family or not. If you raise children that you don't love, at some point they figure it out that you care about yourself first and you truly are selfish. There's always hope for parents, but if you're not self-aware, you'll find out later on when they're 20 or 25, 30, they're not calling you, they're not texting you, they're not communicating with you because they know you love them, but they know you loved yourself or your business or someone else first over them. So that really a pivotal decision or a hard decision is letting go of your friends who may not be fitting within your current plans. That is probably the most difficult thing that you have to do. Um, Probably the hardest decision that I have to make as a business owner. And so there's more than that one experience. There's been many over the years that it was very difficult to do.
Yeah, and that's really, I mean, it becomes this emotional quandary, and it's probably one of the most challenging things that any business owner has is being able to do that difficult task of letting somebody go. The problem is that so many people sit with it for way longer than they should have before they finally go ahead and do it. And what really makes a good leader and good business owner is recognizing that when it's not working, you're not actually doing an injustice to the person by letting them go. You're giving them an opportunity to explore the best place for them to become the best version of themselves. And it's easy to say that. It's much harder to do it in action. But they say hire slow, fire fast, right? And the problem is that most people, and as much as we understand and know that, do it the opposite, right? Like we're always in a rush when we need to fill a position and we're going to cut corners to try to fill it. And then we end up with the wrong person there. And then we're going to hold them there for way longer than we should because we feel bad about letting them go.
I
And if,
yeah,
and yeah,
I agree with that, but I also think there's a more nuanced position to take as if we're doing this so long. I think that you should always typically um, hire slow, but obviously, if you're really good at hiring, you may not have to, but you can't use that as a justification, right? And then you miss the boat. So hiring slow is typically good, but you can run multiple interviews on a person quick and hire them within a week period, putting them through massive amounts of interviews and questions and everything. But I think sometimes maintaining the relationship after you may keep someone on just a little bit longer. There's a line that I obviously failed at many times of keeping people way longer than necessary. But I also think there are times where you'll keep people on if they're not truly negatively impacting your team. Maybe they're a B player and you want to have all A players. You keep them and you let them go gracefully. And I think that's the secret in maintaining relationships with people where you're not lying to them and you're not lying to yourself, but you're giving them a little grace and a little time before you let it go. Now, waiting many years is not smart, or waiting a year, or if someone's a cancer, who you may like personally, but you got to make those decisions quick because there are people I've liked who are cancers, and that's easy for me. Like they got to go, but um, but I think that maintaining relationships with people after, which I think is also the key, because I now know it being and this is something for your viewers. Imagine if you are in a community, you're known in a community, and imagine if you start getting employees from your ex-employees, people that you may have even let go or that quit on you and moved on. They're referring you people, and they're not referring you, hey, go there. This guy's a jerk. They're saying, he's pretty cool. It didn't work out for other reasons, but I moved on. I built my own practice, or maybe he let me go. Sometimes maybe they'll even accept accountability, and sometimes you find your best employees from the people that used to work with you, actually. So, which will be a topic of my new talk, actually, that I'm thinking of doing now. So, thank you, Moshe.
love it, Bill. All right, we're gonna wrap up here. We're just out of time. I love this conversation, and maybe we'll explore it further on another opportunity. But Bill, really thank you for sharing with our audience. I'd like to give you an opportunity before we close it out to do two things. Number one, share with our audience what is one parting piece of advice or wisdom that you'd like to give them. Number two, if they want to find out more about you, I know that you do stuff with attorneys. I know you have a mastermind that you run. If you can share how they can find out more about that, or just how to learn more about you in general, we give you the opportunity to share that as well.
Oh, great. My one bit of advice, that's again a dangerous question, but quickly to answer that is destroy your ego and be a good leader in action, not just words. And as far as getting in contact with me, yeah, I like Instagram as my favorite way of connecting. It's Bill is the lawman. You can send me a direct message there, and if you do, I promise I'll respond, and then I can give you more information about our mastermind and about our other stuff that we do, our lunch and learns and stuff like that. So Bill is the lawman is the easiest way to find me. If you don't have Instagram, then you could drop me an email at bill@thelawman.net, bill@thelawman.net, or text me on my cell phone, 407-399-7999.
Awesome, Bill. Thank you so much, folks. We're going to leave all of that in the show notes. So if you're out driving, in the shower, whatever you're doing while listening to this podcast, you can just access the show notes at profitwithlaw.com, and we'll have everything linked up for you, including anything that was mentioned, like Michael Gerber's book, The E Myth, as well. We are here every single Thursday with another amazing guest interview, and I love Bill. I hold him in really high esteem, and what I love most about him is just his willingness to recognize where his faults are and just accept them and say them. And you saw that throughout the conversation where he talked about, hey, I had an ego, and and I knew what I wanted, and my wife wasn't a leader that would fit in my leadership structure, and those kinds of things is really something that a lot of people don't do well, is really understanding yourself and getting to know yourself. And I think my one takeaway from this conversation with Bill is really highlighting that. And it's something that a lot of us struggle with. And I have a book that I give to a lot of my clients that I think will help you with really getting to know yourself better and understand yourself better. And it's called Living Forward. It's written by Michael Hyatt and Daniel Harkavy. And I think that it's a must read for everybody. So maybe go and pick that book up and explore it. And really excited to be here next Thursday with another guest interview. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button in your podcast player. That's it for now. Take care, folks, and we'll see you next week.